All right, it's the best day of the week. It's Friday. Everybody's happy to get to the end of the week for sure. TGIF and all of that. Well, I say TGIMPN. Thank goodness it's the Morning Pitt Mailbag. That's what we do every Friday. We take your questions on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. We answer as many as we can right here on the Morning Pitt Mailbag, the Friday edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. The official visits are underway. All the recruits are on campus, and they're having their visits and all that. We broke down that whole list yesterday. So if you want the latest recruiting, if you want the latest recruiting info, go check out yesterday's Morning Pitt, and then come back here and dig into the Morning Pitt Mailbag. We got great questions this week, as we always do. We have a couple questions to wrap up from last week, and then we got some great questions coming in this week. Let's jump into it. The Morning Pitt Mailbag here on Friday the 13th. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That sound, that's the sound of a ghost, in case you didn't know. That's what ghosts sound like here in the Panther-Lair.com offices. You probably didn't know that, did you? That's what ghosts sound like. Sometimes that's why I have my headphones on. I can pick up more detailed sound. I can, things that might be undetectable to the naked ear, I can hear with these headphones. And the microphone picks it up as well, so you can hear it too. All right, what we always ask you to do: like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That's the place to get all of our Pitt video content, these daily Morning Pitt videos, Monday through Friday, our weekly live show every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m., press conferences, post-game shows, interviews, all kinds of stuff. We have it right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And the best thing about subscribing is if you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, you can turn on your notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live or post new content. And that comes in handy. Like this week, we couldn't do the live show on Wednesday night. We had a scheduling conflict, had to move it to Tuesday night. Now, you might not have seen our tweets about that or when I talked about it on the Morning Pitt on Tuesday morning. And so you might have missed that news. Then you missed the live show. Darn it. You like to be part of that and be part of that conversation. Jump in the chat screen and talk with me and Jim about Pitt sports. Well, if you are subscribed to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, you can turn on the notifications, and then you'll get an alert that says, hey, Panther-Lair's live now. And then you can tune in for the live stream. You won't miss anything right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Then go over and check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news that you are going to find. Pitt football, Pitt basketball, Pitt recruiting, Pitt transfer portal, Pitt everything. It's at Panther-Lair.com. And then message boards to hang out with other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Pitt fans are hanging out on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, talking to each other about Pitt sports, getting into whatever's going on, whether it's with the team or the recruiting or the transfers or whatever it might be. The best online community of Pitt fans that you're going to find is right there on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. All right, let's jump into the questions. We had some left over from last week, so we'll go to those first. And I kind of don't remember where we left off, but Big Husky 34, I forget if I answered this last week, says, with Whippio recruiting, my general understanding is that when Pitt offers a kid, the offer is committable. Has that changed lately? I can think of West Mifflin kid who went to Akron last cycle. Brendan Alexander seems to be someone whose offer list is big, but not many are committable. So here's the thing, and I apologize if I answered this question last week, but Whippio stuff is always worth discussing, and I was just talking about this on Wednesday night with somebody who's kind of involved with Whippio football. We were talking about Pitt and how Pitt approaches the Whippio and how Pitt has to approach the Whippio. If Pitt offers, actually, maybe I did answer this question last week, but if Pitt offers, a sophomore or somebody in New Jersey, and then that kid doesn't develop the way they thought they would or the way they projected, and they want to kind of walk away from that offer, I mean, you can do that. You can get away with it. You can go back and recruit that school again the next year or whatever it is. It's not going to hurt you too much. But I don't think Pitt has that luxury with local recruits. And this is the thing that's always forgotten when they get into, why wasn't Pitt the first to offer this kid? Why wasn't Pitt the first to offer that kid? I mean, they weren't the first to offer this kid or that kid because they weren't 100% sold. And when they're talking about local kids, they want to be 100% sure. They want to be sure that if they offer a kid on September 1st, 2025, they are going to be still willing to honor that offer on September 1st, 2027 or whenever it might be. They don't want to be in a position of walking away from Western PA kids very often. You don't want to unoffer or de-offer or have uncommittable offers to local guys. You want to be on the up and up. You want to walk in and look a kid in the face and say, we want you to come to Pitt, and you want to mean it. And you want to, not contingent on you getting 3 inches taller or getting, this much faster or anything like that. We want you to come to Pitt. You are a target for us. And so that's a little bit different. Notre Dame comes in here, or Maryland comes in here, or Texas A&M comes in here or something. If they walk away from an offer, it happens. It's not the end of the world for that school and their recruiting efforts locally. If you are the local school, though, I think you are held to a different standard, and understandably so. And I think Pitt holds itself to a different standard when it comes to offering and recruiting the local kids. Ray H2P says, with roster limits expanded, do you see a class of 24 to 27 this year? I do think Pitt will take a lot of guys. I don't even know what counts as a full class anymore. Presumably they still have the limit on 25 initial scholarships, but there are always ways to get around that. If you're in position to sign 27 guys, you can make it happen. You're not going to need to worry about limits on classes and things like that. You can count guys back. So many guys enroll early and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. Pitt's class, right now, they've got 15 commitments. They've got guys coming in for official visits right now. They've got guys coming in for official visits next weekend. I think this class will get north of 20. I think they'll get close to 25, if not getting up to 25. I think it's possible they could add 10 more commitments. My guess is they might add 8 more. I wouldn't be surprised if they settle in around 22 to 24. 23 or 24 would probably be most likely. But I wouldn't be surprised by 25. I don't know if they'll go over that, but I do think they'll be above 20. I think this will be a big recruiting class. This is part of the reason why, they got 3 offensive linemen to commit last weekend. They have a couple of guys coming in this weekend, and I think they would take commitments from those guys, because if you're going to take a big recruiting class, you might as well get 4 or 5 offensive linemen in the class. It's one of the most important positions to add numbers, partially because you need 5 guys on the field at all times, and partially because it's, I think, one of the toughest positions to project of how a guy is going to transition to college and how he's going to do in college. Outside of the very, very top offensive line prospects in high school, I think it's tough to really get a gauge. I always say that I think offensive line and quarterback are the 2 most difficult positions to project at the next level. And I think, that goes at the next level. When you're projecting college to NFL, I think it's also 2 of the most difficult positions. And so it benefits you, I think, to take, or behooves you to take a lot of guys on the offensive line, because you don't know, you might take 5 or 6 in a class and maybe only 2 pan out. Well, that's still 2 that pan out. If you only take 3 in a class, maybe none of them do. You know what I mean? Maybe only 1 does. So I think you play the odds. I think you attack it with numbers. And with this looking like a bigger recruiting class, 23, 24, 25 guys, I think you take like 5 offensive linemen, because you've got room for it. And like you said, the roster, you're not limited by the roster size. You're not held to 85 scholarship players anymore. You can go above that. And so there's really no reason to turn anybody away, particularly at a position group like the offensive line, if it's a target you feel like they can play for you, and they want to come. Zenmeister 1992 says, given the discussion about freshmen visiting this weekend, it's made me think that with the nature of college athletics and mainly the transfer portal, does it make as much sense for teams to care about red shirts as much as they maybe did in preserving a year of eligibility 10 years ago when you were almost certain player X was going to be at your school for all 5 years? So this is probably, I think my opinion and the opinion of the coaching staff, there's some separation here. To me, I say not at all. If a guy can get out there. Now, we should clarify a little bit, that the redshirt rules have changed since 10 years ago, where you can play 4 games plus a bowl game. And conceivably, if you got into the playoffs, you could play like 4 games in the regular season plus like 4 more games or whatever in the postseason. You're going to end up playing like 8 games and still take a red shirt. Whereas in the past, it was like you step on the field and you burn your red shirt. But nowadays, I think if a guy can help you, if a player can help you, if he can help you on special teams, he can help you on offense, defense, whatever it is, you play him. I don't think you really, if it's me, I'm not paying any mind to the red shirt. I don't care about the red shirt. I can't sit back and expect somebody to be here 5 years from now. Some of those guys will be here 5 years from now, but I can't sit back here and count on it the way you could, like you said, 10 years ago. Now, coaches, I think, look at it a little bit differently. I think coaches do still think of, well, it's in this guy's best interest if we hold him. It's in this guy's best interest if we can be careful and only use him 4 games. It's in this guy's best interest to get that red shirt and that extra year of eligibility. I think that's how coaches look at it. So, I mean, only a handful of guys played last year. Like, who burned their red shirt last year as a true freshman? Sincere Edwards, Malachi Thomas, Francis Brew. Is that it? I think that might be it. I could look at our scholars. Actually, I have our scholarship board right here. Why wouldn't I be looking at that? Oh, can't find the button. It looked like it had disappeared. Sophomores, true sophomores. Malachi Thomas, Francis Brew, Jeremiah Marcelin, I think, played enough to burn his red shirt, and then Sincere Edwards. So you're talking about like 4 guys out of that recruiting class who got on the field. And so I think Pat Narduzzi and the staff, the Pitt coaching staff, are trying to preserve guys. But if it was me, like, what are you preserving them for? Yeah, I mean, like, the sad reality of it, and I think it probably seems a little bit cynical, but it's just reality, is like half of those guys that you're preserving that extra year, they're going to make the most of that extra year of eligibility playing somewhere else. I mean, realistically. So what did you now, I mean, the flip side of that is like, well, did you really hold yourself back by not playing that freshman offensive lineman or not playing that freshman corner or not playing that freshman quarterback? I just don't think any decision should be made with an eye toward preserving that year of eligibility. If there's a guy who can help you, put him on the field. Even if it's for one play, put him on the field. And if it burns his red shirt, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But you might as well get him out there and use him. Because, as we always say, tomorrow ain't promised to no one. All right. Let's roll on to questions from this week. That wrapped up the questions from last week. We had a few there that I did want to get to. Smen starts us off this week, says, with a healthy offensive line, Eli Holstein and Desmond Reed, what percentage chance do you give Pitt to reach or to A, play in the ACC championship game, and B, make the college football playoff field? If the offensive line stays healthy and Eli Holstein stays healthy and Desmond Reed stays healthy, like, I think they can be pretty decent. I think they could be a pretty good team. I think this defense should be pretty solid. Probably the other factor I would throw in as a consideration is how well the defensive line plays. But you just want to talk about the health of the offense. Basically it's just the health of the offense is what you're saying when you're talking about the line, the quarterback, and the All-American running back. I think they could be a pretty good team. I think 8 wins minimum. I think they can give themselves a shot at 9 wins because last year they had a shot at 9 wins, right? Percentage chance to win to play in the ACC championship game. Everybody stays healthy. I don't know. What number? Where I don't know where to settle here. I'm thinking like 30 to 40%, but that seems like, is that too high? You know what I mean? Am I overstating it? Am I getting ridiculous? I kind of feel like I might be. I think this team has a chance to be pretty good, but I think they've also still got holes. I'm still not convinced about the wide receiving core. I'm still not convinced the tight ends are going to do anything. I still need to be proven. I need anything to be proven out of the defensive line, particularly the defensive ends. These transfers they brought in, I think there's a chance for those guys to be pretty solid. I think the defensive tackles should be pretty good, but, sure things. I think the offensive line will be good if they stay healthy. I think Eli Holstein will be good if he stays healthy. I think Desmond Reed will be good if he stays healthy. I think the linebackers will be good. I'm pretty confident in the back 7 overall. But that confidence, with the caveat if they stay healthy, how does that confidence translate into making the ACC finishing in the top 2 of a 17-team conference? I can't go 50%. And 40 feels pretty high too. Maybe in the 30s, maybe 30 to 35%. And the playoff it'd be less than that. It'd be like 10% or less. But if you had asked me last year on June 13th, what percentage chance do I give Pitt of having a 7-0 start to the season? I would have said probably less than 10%. So we'll see. We'll see when they get out there. And if they stay healthy is a really big if. That if is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Panther Bandy says, do you think that the quote, new and different allocation of resources comment by Alan Green could also reference why Jeff Capel was not let go since his buyout is essentially a whole year of revenue sharing? No, I don't think when Alan Green talks about allocating resources or redistributing resources or looking at their investments and things like that, I don't think he's referring to not paying Jeff Capel's buyout. Because even before revenue sharing was a thing 2 years ago or 3 years ago, before they made the offseason, before they made the NCAA tournament, we were having conversations about the buyout. And even then, there was no consideration for revenue sharing, and it still didn't make sense. It didn't make sense for Pitt to pay that money. It didn't make sense for Pitt to pay someone to go away like that, just financially. The athletic department of the university, regardless of whether they could afford it, they should not. You know what I mean? They just shouldn't. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't think there's really a connection there. I still think that Alan Green's talk about unconventional things and reconsidering where they invest, or what was the phrase you quoted, new and different allocation of resources. I think it's about shuffling the deck chairs. And I don't mean to invoke or allude to that, shuffle, rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I think like moving those chairs around, trying to find new ways to do things while freeing up money. I mean, I think it's looking at, athletic department positions and staff positions. I think it's looking at sports and how much sports are costing and what kind of return you're getting on that investment. And I think that's where the decisions are. A lot of decisions are going to be made. And when he talks about unconventional, things or different allocations or where we invest and considering where we invest, I think it's sitting down and looking at the budget sheet for the athletic department and saying, okay, why are we spending X on this? Why are we spending Y on that? And what are we getting out of those investments? And does it make sense to continue paying that money? I think that's what he's referencing. Left Coast Panther says, wasn't there talk from the NCAA giving football players 5 years of eligibility and eliminating redshirting except for a medical circumstance? I do remember some conversation about that. Not even, you say football players, I feel like it was overall just changing to a 5-year eligibility clock. I don't remember anything really coming out of that. So that I don't know. I don't think that was like, one of the sort of sidebars to the House settlement or anything like that. I just remember there was a conversation, and some of it was, JUCO years wouldn't count as part of your as part of your eligibility clock, and so guys were getting extra years that way, and a lot of guys were sort of declaring themselves having these extra years, even though they hadn't actually gotten them, and now subsequently, I think a lot of those guys who thought they were going to get an extra year didn't get an extra year, so nothing really seems to have come from that. I do remember some conversation about it. I feel like it was a discussion that was tabled in light of more pressing matters like the House settlement. Ski 8210 says, with Zachary Turner and Asan Theus being teammates in Texas and visiting Pitt the same weekend, could Pitt get a 2-for-1 with them, and are they planning official visits together elsewhere? Yeah, Ace Theus and Zach Turner from Duncanville High School in Texas, part of a prolific passing attack that included the number 2 quarterback in the country in the 2025 recruiting class and the number 1 wide receiver in the 2025 recruiting class. The quarterback's going to Alabama. The wide receiver is going to Oregon. Zach Turner and Ace Theus were the next 2 wide receivers, the next 2 top receiving targets on that team, and they're both visiting Pitt this weekend. They haven't actually had any other overlap on their official visits. As far as we know, Theus went to Oregon State on May 9th and TCU on the 30th. Zach Turner went to Miami on May 30th, SMU last weekend, and he's going to Oklahoma next weekend. So no overlap there. They've got some offers that overlap: Arizona State, Auburn, Baylor, Colorado, Maryland, Nebraska, Oklahoma State. Let me see if there were any others. Utah and Wisconsin, but no overlaps on their official visits. As far as we know right now, these are the only Pitt is the only school that they are visiting together. Getting both, I think, would be huge. And they're different players. Turner, like I said, we list Turner as a tight end, a 6'2 tight end in the 247 sports database, whereas Theus is he's a 5'8 wide receiver, more in the mold of a lot of the receivers Pitt has taken so far. They're both playmakers. They both put up huge numbers. They both caught 58 passes last year. Theus turned that into 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Turner turned it into 933 yards and 14 touchdowns. They're good. They come from a ridiculously prolific offense at Duncanville, and I think they're going to be really good players. If Pitt could land them both, I think it would be huge. And even though they've got some receivers in this class, I think they would like to add these guys. And getting more of a foothold in Texas, getting some playmakers from Texas, I think Pitt would love to be able to do that. If they could get Turner and Theus this weekend, it would be huge. Of course, we'll have a full recap of the official visit weekend on Monday. And, if you don't want to wait that long, you can stay tuned to all of the coverage throughout the weekend here on Panther-Lair.com. We'll be updating things as these recruits go through the weekend, as the commitments start coming in. You want to find out who committed, where Pitt stands with the recruits who are visiting. This is the place to do it. Panther-Lair.com, the Pitt site on the 247 Sports Network. So stay tuned there all weekend. The visits will go through tomorrow, and then Pitt will have a prospect camp on Sunday. We'll have lots of recruiting coverage for you. All weekend long at Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you stay tuned. All right, thanks so much for tuning in today. Thanks, everybody, for all the questions. We had a few left over, but that gives us a great start for next week, and we will catch up on those then. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. And check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. All right, thanks again for watching the videos all week long. Thanks for watching the mailbag today. I hope you've had a great week. Enjoy your Friday the 13th, and we'll catch up with you on Monday for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.